The secret insulator that saved soldiers when blankets failed in World War II. You know, when people talk about the brutal winters of World War II, they often mention frozen trenches, frostbitten soldiers, and endless fields of snow. But hidden beneath that suffering lies one of the most overlooked survival secrets of the entire war. A material so ordinary that it's almost laughable. Yet it kept men alive when even military-grade wool blankets froze solid. That forgotten insulator wasn't high-tech. It wasn't rare. It was straw, the same golden stalks left behind after the harvest. And when temperatures plunged and supplies vanished, straw quietly became the front-line defence against the killing cold. Why soldiers trusted straw when blankets turned useless? World War II's European and Eastern fronts weren't just battlefields, they were frozen wastelands. Temperatures in places like Russia and the Ardennes dropped to levels that turned water to ice within minutes. Soldiers learned fast that traditional wool blankets soaked up moisture, grew heavy, and froze into slabs of ice. Sleeping bags, when issued at all, suffered the same fate. You couldn't dry them, and you couldn't rely on them once they were wet. So troops began turning to whatever they could find. And across the continent, from Poland's barns to Belgium's fields, there was always one material in abundant: straw. Farmers used it for bedding animals, and soldiers quickly realized it did the same job for people. When nights dipped below freezing, men lined their shelters with it, stuffed it into their boots, filled their coats, and laid thick beds of it beneath their bodies. Entire units started surviving nights that would have otherwise killed them. What looked like desperation turned into a revelation. Straw simply worked. The real science behind why straw beat the cold. The brilliance of straw wasn't magic, it was physics. Heat loss happens in three main ways: conduction, convection, and radiation. Blankets fight this by trapping warm air close to the body. But once a blanket gets wet or compressed, it loses its loft, and the air pockets disappear. Without that trapped air, there's nothing stopping your body heat from leaking away. Straw, on the other hand, is naturally hollow and rigid. Each stalk traps air inside itself, and because it doesn't flatten easily, those air pockets stay intact, even when damp. This simple structure made it a natural insulator, light, breathable, and remarkably effective at holding heat. A soldier lying on snow lost warmth fast through conduction. But lying on 6 inches of straw? That created a barrier thick enough to stop the ground from stealing his body heat. Even slightly wet straw kept performing, unlike wool. It didn't absorb much water, so it dried fast and stayed light. Soldiers who layered straw inside their uniforms found that it trapped heat better than their issued coats. It wasn't comfortable or fashionable, but it was life-saving. Field ingenuity that turned straw into survival gear. The stories of soldiers' resourcefulness with straw are as fascinating as they are inspiring. On the Eastern Front, where the temperature could drop to minus 30 degrees Celsius, men scavenged barns not for food, but for bedding. Barn lofts filled with straw became the warmest spots around, and troops would cram themselves under haystacks for warmth. Some soldiers took things further. They stuffed their greatcoats with handfuls of straw until they looked twice their normal size. Boots were packed with straw too, replacing socks when none were available. When feet got wet, the straw would be changed regularly to keep them dry. Helmets were sometimes lined with straw to add insulation from the biting air. Makeshift bunkers were reinforced with straw walls to block wind, while others mixed it with mud to make warmer, sturdier fortifications. Every soldier who learned these tricks gained a fighting edge against the cold and against the grim odds of frostbite and hypothermia. Those who ignored the trick often paid dearly. Frostbite was as deadly as bullets in some campaigns. The German army alone recorded hundreds of thousands of frostbite cases during the Russian winter. Straw wasn't glamorous, but it was one of the few things that worked consistently. Why this World War II lesson still matters today. Fast forward to the present, the science of survival hasn't changed. The same principles that saved soldiers in 1944 can still save you in the wild today. Straw remains a powerful natural insulator, cheap, abundant, and easy to use. If you ever find yourself outdoors in freezing weather without proper gear, straw might just be your best ally. Start by building a straw bed, at least 6 inches deep. That layer stops heat loss to the ground and creates a warm cushion. Want to go further? Add another layer of straw over your body, forming a kind of natural sleeping bag. You'll feel the warmth immediately. For clothing, stuff dry straw between your inner and outer layers. It might look bulky, but it works wonders. Wet socks? Fill your boots with straw and replace it as it dampens. Even makeshift shelters benefit from straw packed into walls or roofs, adding insulation that can mean the difference between comfort and survival. For preppers and bushcrafters, straw bales are a smart, low-cost addition to emergency supplies. They're versatile. You can use them for bedding, shelter insulation, or even temporary building material. And unlike high-end synthetic gear, straw doesn't rely on perfect conditions to work. What history teaches us about survival and simplicity? The story of straw in World War II isn't just about keeping warm. It's about human adaptability. Soldiers didn't wait for new gear or technology. They looked around, used what they had, and figured out what worked. That mindset is the real survival skill. Straw wasn't issued equipment, it wasn't part of any army manual, and yet it proved more valuable than some of the official gear. This forgotten lesson reminds us that survival often depends more on understanding the world around us than on owning expensive equipment. Knowledge, improvisation and resourcefulness, those were the tools that kept soldiers alive in the snow. And they're still the tools that matter today. For historians, this forgotten insulator reveals the hidden ingenuity behind everyday survival. For survivalists, it's a timeless reminder that nature already provides the tools we need. We just have to understand how to use them. And for anyone fascinated by the intersection of history and practical knowledge, straw stands as a humble but powerful symbol of resilience. Keeping history's survival secrets alive. When we strip away the myths of war and look at the ground-level reality, it's stories like these that stand out. Not of weapons or victories, but of men using the simplest materials to defy the elements. Straw, the most unassuming of all things, outperformed military blankets and high-tech gear when it mattered most. So, the next time you hear stories about frozen foxholes or soldiers in snow-covered forests, remember the golden stalks that kept them alive. That's not nostalgia, that's practical knowledge, proven in one of the harshest environments on Earth. If you found this deep dive into forgotten wartime survival wisdom valuable, make sure to subscribe to HistoryHQ and share this video with fellow history buffs and survival enthusiasts. Because keeping this kind of knowledge alive isn't just about remembering the past. It's about preparing for the future.